There are years where everyone gets something, and then there are years where everything is for everyone. "2025 was the latter. 2025 was just the best year." I'm talking about video games here. I typically struggle to find maybe 2 games that deserve full score, while this time I barely found anything that deserves a low one, mostly because I don't play stuff like Assassin's Creed and can see a train wreck coming when it's announced by the trumpets of Armageddon. People who like stories that make you cry got Expedition 33, and people who like stories that make them feel popular got Dispatch. We got 80s 2, Sweets 2, Donkey Kong 2. Games released in the same year. Brazilian Drug Dealer 3 proved even shitpost games can be good, and Metroid Prime 4...
She's doing Morphball.
All I'm saying is you had to put an actual effort in order to find a bad game this year, and that gets me out of my job. I like too much stuff. Wait, is this what happens when your standards reach rock bottom? Have they become a normie? Nah, can't be. But what am I gonna do? Make a list of worst games of the year where half of it is made of decent games, meaning I get tons of hate by random people online?
It's no surprise that
Portal 2
was a disaster.
Hey, that sounds fun, let's do that! But no remasters allowed. You're not getting any freebie from me, Mario. What have you ever done for me except giving me joy? Also, didn't play Kingdom Come. Those games are long, and I barely had time to finish the... Oh. I forgot the smell of fresh air. Picking a game for this spot was tough. Monster Hunter Wilds was visceral and intense, but was written by a macaque. Split Fiction was idea after idea, but was written by a chimpanzee. Katamari saved my life and my marriage, but was written... well, no, that's actually part of the curse. And then there's Baby Steps. Baby Steps is not fun at all. And I still played it non-stop in a single sitting. It takes balls to make a game whose sole purpose is making you rage quit and then fill it with grandiose vistas and a genuinely compelling narrative that tackles loneliness and toxic masculinity through the century-old narrative device of donkey dicks. Big, floppy, dangling donkey dicks. Wait a second, RoboKnob! You said no remasters! You tricked us! You tricked us all! Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm a victim here too! This game tricked me into thinking this was an RPG where you pilot a giant mech, but in reality it's a single-player, massive, sometimes online RPG, where the multiplayer is barely existent, but it's still miles better than spending hours doing fetch quests across the planet.
Welcome to New Los Angeles.
I can see the appeal, and when all its components click, it's a joy to seamlessly go from combat to exploration and then soar into the skies with the press of a button. But what Xenox Chronicles XXX truly showed me is that there's a reason other entries of this series are more popular. Hades 2 is a unique case of a sequel that improves on everything its predecessor did and then takes 5 steps backwards on everything its predecessor already did perfectly. More weapons, more enemies, incredible variety of builds and strategies, skill up! Just skill up! Then the story comes in.
Foul!
Hades 2 gameplay is a big, chunky, tasty moussaka, but there's no tzatziki on the side. The story goes nowhere. What they did to the ending deserves a whole separate video. The characters are monotone compared to the first game, and most of their arcs take an eternity to get anywhere, if there's even a satisfactory arc to begin with, and it's all hidden under 60 layers of grinding. Your turn, Nolan. In my review I called Chronos one of the best Bluebird Team games, and after spending the good part of December going back through their body of work, I'd say I was pretty spot on. Chronos is fun in small doses. Problem is, those small doses are separated by long chunks of nothing, where the real horror takes form in the cutscenes trying to make sense of the story. I started Blueprints as a normal person, and by the end of it had enough sketches and weird graphs written in my little notebook to earn me a free presidential suite in an asylum. It was a different experience that mixed an almost Souls-like narration with low-paced but high-stakes roguelite mechanics that made those credit rolls one of the most well-earned and satisfying moments of the year. Then the post-game started, and the RNG began endlessly stalling my progress, turning my bliss into what felt like getting hit by a chomp chomp. I've spent a good chunk of my adult life praising Doom 2016 for its story, or rather, its calibrated lack of it. Eternal strayed from it. The DLCs were weird, and Dark Ages now cements my conviction that that was just a fluke. Now everything is about telling the story of King Dude and his fight against the Demon Lord Bubsy. Oh, and the Doomslayer is there too. When he's not busy roaming around the gigantic flat levels, he does turret sections and very scripted flying segments, because even he gets too bored of playing baby's first Sekiro for too long. 7 spots seems about right. Not too high, people will call me a shill, and not too low, 14 years old will tell me I don't understand art. I called it this generation's Final Fantasy VII, but the more I think about it, the more I realize that comparison doesn't account for how Final Fantasy VII innovated, whereas Clair Obscur remixed older mechanics and made them the most palatable and the most accessible they've ever been. So it's more this generation's Final Fantasy X, and without the cringe. I fucking love this game, man. The soundtrack is generic, bombastic noise. The story feels AI generated. Jumps are floaty and imprecise, making every platforming section a nightmare. The characters, oh my god, the characters, they give the cast of Stellar Blade a run for their money. But when you can shut off all that noise and the fights start, damn, this is fun. When the screen isn't covered in more flashes and lights than a Michael Bay movie and the frame rate doesn't drop to single digits, it's exhilarating to perform insane combos that allow you to zigzag around your enemies with ease in what I can only describe as everything Final Fantasy XVI wanted to be, but never managed to. Wait, so why is this on your worst of the year list? Did you miss the part where I said everything else is doggy crap? I originally placed the altars much lower on my list, but then I remembered it was also the only game I immediately restarted as soon as I reached the end credits. The story, the characters, I was compelled to spend more time with them and give them a happier ending. Also, for the second time in history, a Polish game managed to make survival gameplay fun, proving that if you want an experience focused on tight resource management and the dread of impending doom dangling on your head, you have to rely on people who are used to that on a daily basis. Don't kick them when they're down, they say. Bullying is wrong and emotionally scars people, they say. But I'm itching to try my hand at stuffing the weird kid into the locker. Maybe I should be gentle though, because Horses is trying. The attempt at telling a mature story is there, but it's drowned by the excessive focus on shocking the player. And as the saying goes, one instance of assault is dramatic, 2 is rubbing it in, 3 gets you a job at Blizzard. Or a presidency. Kojima is Kojima, and I am RoboKnob, and RoboKnob loves Kojima. When it comes to game design, this man operates on a different dimension, and this specifically is a dimension where all the groundwork laid out in Metal Gear Solid 5 and Death Stranding 1 evolves and hits all the right notes. When Kojima will finally stop spending his days in movie theaters and relearns how normal human beings talk, we will finally get a game to beat his true masterpiece. Boktai, the sun is in your hand. Post-Trauma might be the smartest meta-narration of the year, and I just misunderstood it, because the game itself seems to mimic the mental state of its protagonist by continuously degrading and breaking apart as the story progresses. The inspired direction is sacrificed to leave space for boring first-person segments. The puzzles get increasingly more boring or frustrating. As the level design gets progressively more linear, the performances drop and the bugs become more apparent. It all coalesces in a 6 hours game that felt 13 hours long. It's an earnest but failed attempt at recreating the feeling of the original Silent Hill titles, but the closest thing it gets is having bosses that suck just as much as the ones in those games. Speaking of Silent Hill F for Fabulous. If Katamari hadn't already saved my marriage, this thing would convince me to pay child support. It's scary, it's fun, it has a story I could talk about for hours! And I did. I lost many friends in 2025. I liked even the parts people hated. Guys, I'm serious, the Scarecrow puzzle makes sense! I can't believe that in this timeline we would get a Silent Hill game that can go head-to-head with Silent Hill 2. But I also can't believe that there's still people who subscribe to Nier Replicant's philosophy of forcing players to replay your games 5 times to figure out the story. Okay, enough with the okay-ish, underwhelming games. Time to bring out the real stinkers.
Excuse me.
Hotel Barcelona makes me think I'm wrong. And I probably am, because why would I get hyped for a game made by a guy whose greatest achievement was creating a cult classic that is also known for being a broken mess? I guess half of that statement still rings true here. Underneath its quirky presentation, that's how adults refer to scantily dressed women to sound more socially acceptable, there's a barely functional hack and slash, so sluggish, so unresponsive, it seems to be running on a Commodore 64 or whatever's left of Stephen Hawking's text-to-speech machine. Donkey Kong! Nintendo might sue you to the ground if you call your son Luigi or try to play an old ROM of some dusty-ass game that was never released on the Nintendo PlayStation. But they know how to make games. If Odyssey was a precise and rigorous symphonic play, Bonanza is a Slipknot concert. It's messy, chaotic, sublimely fun, and all the best people are there to chill alongside you. Whereas other games create a framework for you, Bonanza is all about literal sequence breaking, which I guess makes it more Metroidvania than Metroid Prime 4. Low bar to clear, I know. What happened inside Remedy's offices when their higher-ups thought of greenlighting a multiplayer-only game? Figures. I don't get FBC Firebreak. No, I mean literally. The onboarding was so confusing and directionless, it felt more like the evacuation after hitting an iceberg, and I wasn't going to stay around to have some thought dropping me off a wooden door.
So sad, but true.
100 Line is a one-in-a-lifetime game. The kind of experience we will probably never see again. At least that's what the director keeps saying on Twitter, and even though I'm inclined to think he's tooting his own horn a bit too much, I can't really say he's wrong. 100 Line is a mastodontic game that intertwines so many different stories together and somehow manages to pull it off. Add a genuinely fun combat system accompanied by a banging soundtrack, and what you get is a game I can discuss in public.
Baba Bowie.
I need to learn how to better spend my money. Six long years, endless speculations, 1,000 memes about a game that never seemed to come out, and now that it is out, is Silksong everything I was hoping for? No! It's really not what I was expecting. If Hollow Knight was Dark Souls, Silksong is Bloodborne. And I fucking love Bloodborne. Silksong made me feel like a kid again, wanting to keep on exploring its lush environments and derelict towns. The soundtrack masterfully punctuating every discovery, every new chance encounter, every new foe suddenly bursting into the scene. And yes, this is a bastard game that wants you to suffer and bang your head against the same arena for hours. But no matter how frustrated I got at times, I'll keep singing its praises till the day the US learns the metric system. I absolutely love Silksong. And I can't wait to never play it again. God damn it! Is anyone really surprised here? Was anyone seriously wondering which game would have taken the first spot? I bought Mind's Eye expecting a train wreck, and that still didn't prepare me for the failure on every front I was about to witness. With shooting mechanics that seem lifted from an Unreal Engine tutorial and an open world whose emptiness probably mirrored the poor souls of the crunched devs that had to work on it, Mind's Eye's sole merit is being the perfect poster child of a tech bro culture that believes quality and artistry materializes out of thin air if you throw enough money at it. Well, okay, it also did give us that hilarious 1-minute QA video where legendary director Leslie Benzies tries his best impression of a competent director, giving deep insight to his developers, like more rain here, while they take notes. I wish I could read those. I assume half of them were updated resumes and the other half was just a single resounding "oh fuck".